Welcome back everyone to more of our gameplay series of X4 Foundations. Now, one of the things I love most about the X universe is how alive it is. It certainly has its issues with some of the AI behaviors, but I love how alive it is, and I love to stand on a station and watch the ships come and go as trade happens. And in this case, this is one of our own. This is our new shipyard. So in our last video, we spent over 500 million credits. We obtained blueprints for the Fabrication Bay for large ships, and then of course we bought the blueprints for the Osaka large battleship. Now we have the ability to build them because it's not quite completed, but this is our large ship production, our shipyard, our very first shipyard. Over here to the side, you can see this is one of two fabrication bays we have for the large ships. The other, we'll take a look at the actual design and layout of the station here in a moment, but the other is on the other side of the docking bay. So here off to the side, for those of you who might not be familiar, these are storage. So here we have container storage, liquid storage, as well as storage for the solid materials as well. So all of that is very much needed. Here you can see, looks like construction is continuing on one of the Terran production modules because that is what everything is based on here on this particular shipyard. We have one blueprint for a large ship, and it is a Terran model, so that's what we need to be producing. So as I come out to the map, we're going to talk a little bit more about the areas down here, particularly Windfall, in just a moment. But I first want to zoom in and show you guys where I decided to put the shipyard. So here we are with the shipyard, pretty much right in the middle of the sector. But the good news is we're not that far from the accelerator, which will take us into Silent Witness 1. So that's a good thing. And I feel like we're fairly protected here. Again, we've got defensive stations here in the sector. We've got patrols. I think we're good to go here as far as safety. But now, the large shipyard, you can see there's tons of activity, and most of it is with our trading vessels as well as our miners. Now the reason that is so, because I have decided to try to make this a self-contained unit, which means that we're doing all of the production for everything we need except for energy cells here on the shipyard itself. So let's actually come in and let's go to plan build, and let's take a look at what we have. So as I move this around a little bit, what we started with was a standard docking area, and then I laid out all of this storage. Again, this is container storage, solid storage, liquid storage, you name it, it's all right here in this area. Then flanking that on either side, we have our fabrication bays. So we have two of them up and running right now, and I have recently done an expansion. So at first, I got us two of each of the modules that are part of the Terran production. Now I'm expanding that with a couple more of those on the other side. So we're slowly filling this station out, and how big will I eventually get it? I have no idea. We'll just have to see what we need over time. But right now I think we've got plenty of storage, and we should have plenty of production as this continues on. You can see right now we're starting to work on two silicon carbide production modules and finishing those up, and then we'll get into another computonic substrate, which is right there. I only had room for one more of those without working out into more of this area. I mean, we've got plenty of area because we can also go north and south as opposed to just in your standard directions of east and west here. And then I'm adding two more docking bays because we have so much activity with the mining. So here's what I decided to do with that. Because we have so much storage and we're doing our own production, we needed a bunch of miners. So I went to our Terran wharf and I commissioned about 25 miners in total, combined gas miners as well as mineral miners. So we have tons of those, and that is what you hear in the background. If I come out of this totally, you can see all of these guys that are landing. These are all of the miners, and some of them are being stored away like you see happening right there, at least temporarily. They don't last very long in there because we need a lot of material. So if we come back out, and let's actually go into the logical overview. So you can see there's a lot going on here. However, there's a lot of things missing here that you might expect to find in a shipyard as far as the materials that we're demanding. Well, the reason why they're missing is because we only have the one blueprint, and this is what it requires, based on the different modules we have that will fit on that. So some of these things that you see, such as the field coils and shield components, that's because we do have medium and large shields as well as turrets that are not Terran related. So that's why you see those. I'm allowing them to be built because we might need to use those at some point, and it's not a huge deal. There's only a few of them, and then we get into everything we need to mine. That's why we have so many miners. Right now you can see we're low on silicon and ore, which is going to hinder this production if that continues. But right now we've got just enough to finish up. Looks like about 8 more minutes here on that, and enough for 43 minutes there. So we're doing perfectly fine there. Let's actually hop over and see how silicon carbide is going. We've got enough resources for 12 more minutes of production, and there you can see the amounts we have. But again, don't be fooled by the fact that we have so little versus so much storage space. If you take a look, we have quite a bit of storage space available right now. So what that really means to us is, well, how many ships can we build right now? So let's go in and actually figure that out right now. So let's go build ships. Large ship, the Osaka, and I do have a new loadout here called wharf, and that's simply to designate that this is the one that we can build, and we have all the parts and pieces for it, this particular wharf. The KPG build has a few things in it that we don't have the blueprints for here, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. So let's take a look briefly at the loadout for our version of the Osaka. Okay, again, just love the look of this particular ship. And remember, we purchased all of these blueprints in our last video. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that, it's entitled 500 million credits. I definitely recommend doing so because it'll give you an idea of what sort of scale we're working on and how much credit you do need to make it happen. So our engine, we're using the all-around engine. As far as the overall shielding, we're using the Mark II. That's all that we can use because we're using medium shields. And I don't have the Mark III of the medium shields. I'm not even sure there's one available. But if it is, we haven't purchased the blueprint. But you can see there are 4 of those available. We have the all-around Mark II thrusters, shield generators. This is what makes me happy. We have the Terran version of the Mark III shield, and there are 3 of those. And here you can see that our shield, 208,000. That's nearly double the shield that we have on our behemoths that we buy from Argon. So I'm very happy about that. The hull is pretty close to the same, so that's not a huge difference. But the shielding is far superior here on the Osaka, as well as, we'll move on and take a look at the weapons here very quickly. Here you see them on the side of the vessel. So we have 2 of those. Those were also very expensive to purchase the blueprints for. But then we have our turrets. This is another part that makes me extremely happy and has me loving this ship. We have 3 large turrets. Now here you see 2 of them right here, and then another one underneath right there. So a total of 3 turrets, which is the most I've seen so far. I believe all of the Argon ships only have 2. And then we get into the medium turrets. I believe the Argon vessels have 4, if I'm not mistaken. But here we have room for 6, and here you can see those at different points. You can see the smaller green boxes there as you look around the ship. Those are all of the medium turrets. Then you get into the shields there, of course, engines in the rear. But that is a very nice loadout. So let's talk a little bit about what I've done for the loadout on these ships. Remember, this is our wharf loadout that we've done. So I wanted all of the large turrets to be plasma. because plasma, in my experience, very brief experience, is amazing against large and extra large ships, and that's what these are designed for. Also, I would imagine very good against stations whenever we get to that point as well. But I wanted plasma. But now plasma is no good against smaller, faster vessels. So against medium ships and small ships, it's not going to be that good. However, for the large turrets, I wanted plasma, because this is where we're going to do work against the large and extra large ships, as well as the stations as we move on into the future. And of course, we've got our max shielding. At some point, I may actually go get the Mark III shields for these. I'll add that to my to-do list. We'll see about that, but that is probably something I'll want to do in the future. In fact, the more I think about it, I'm gonna make a note right now, because that is a huge upgrade if we can get it. Now, granted, it's going to take a lot more resources, but hey, we're making the resources. Why not make the best that we can? So then on the medium turrets, I'm doing a few different things here. You can see a lot of this I'm going to use the Terran technology, because we can use the Terran materials for that. But on some of this, I'm going to be using the argon as well. So here we're going to have pulse. You're going to see a lot of pulse in here from the Terran. And then you're also going to see flak in here. And that is specifically so that we can attack the small fighters. So if we get ganged up upon and they send a ton of fighters, then I want to make sure we've got enough flak to take care of those. Because again, in my limited experience, the flak has done a very good job for that. And then we've got a few of the bolt turrets. Again, the Terran model. We've got the bolt turrets as well. So most everything we're using is the Terran technology, but you can see we do have some of, in this case, the Talati plasma model, but we've got some very nice all-around firepower, I believe, on these ships. And then now that I have the idea, I may go and purchase those Mark III if there is a Mark III available, but we'll have to see. But that is what the Osaka design looks like. And let's see how many of these we can actually make right now. Let's try, can we make 5? Okay, we can't quite make 5, but it gives us an opportunity to see what we're missing. All right, can we make 1? Okay, 1 is good. Okay, so we can make 2 right now, which I figure is very nice. Now I'm gonna hold off in making those until I find out about the Mark III medium shield, which may not be available. That's entirely possible. If it is, then we'll try to get that. If it's not, then hey, we'll move on. We've already got a loadout set for the Osaka. So as I come back out, a couple of more things that I want to talk to you guys about. So since we were last together, you're probably seeing in the top left-hand corner, say, wait a minute, you just spent 500 million credits and you were down to, I forget, we were down to like 30, 40 million, something like that, maybe 50 million, somewhere in that range. But now you're up over 300 million? Yes. About 4 to 5 hours have passed in game time since our last video. Now most of that, I was simply letting the game run, letting our traders do their thing, letting our wharfs do their thing and make us money. But I also spent some of that time building new ships, new traders, a lot of the new miners that we were going to need. So we spent some credits during that time as well. But we're up to 318 million, which means that in the future, if we want to get into the extra large ship production, we can do that. And that's what I want to talk about next. I'm happy with the Osaka being our only large vessel right now, simply because it's Terran and we know how to make the Terran vessels very simply with what we have on the shipyard, or what we'll have on the shipyard as that production gets completed. Now we see some fighting here. That is generally argon and yeah, the HOP. So as we make the vessels for them, they start fighting right outside the wharf. So you gotta love that. All that's doing is making more demand for us. So I'm happy about that. But let's talk about extra large ships for a moment. Obviously, we've been purchasing those up until this point. We have a couple of carriers that we've purchased, but the carriers really aren't battleships. All right, they're really, well, just what the name implies. They're carriers. Now, they do have turrets on them, so yes, they certainly can defend themselves, and we've seen that in action just a little bit in previous videos. But they're really not attack vessels. They're storage vessels for the most part. So I would really like to have the new Earl King, which is the extra large that is, I believe, for the Vigor Syndicate. Now, we have no access to their shipyard. If we try to look in here, it's grayed out. It says, no, your reputation is terrible with them. They're not going to sell you anything. Certainly not battleships. But my understanding after doing a little bit of reading is that there is one Earl King on the map that we can actually board and take over if we have the strength to do it. And of course, there's always a chance when we try to board it that we could destroy it or it could obliterate us. So there's a lot of possibilities there, but let's just assume for a moment that we're able to take it over, that we're successful in doing so. Then what I have done is, through my reading, it seems that there's a limit of only one of those that we're allowed to have, and I'm not happy about that. So I've downloaded a mod that, should we get to the point and be successful and capture the Earl King, then what I'm going to do is we're going to use this mod that will enable us to essentially get the blueprint and produce our own. And that has me very excited. Now, of course, we're not to that point just yet. We're going to need some seriously strong vessels and a lot of Marines to do it. And this is not a process that I'm very familiar with. So I'll be learning a lot of this along with you guys here during the video when we decide to get to that point. But apparently over in Windfall, somewhere in one of the Windfalls, there is an Earl King that we can take over and capture should we have the strength and ability to do so. I am very excited in the future about making that happen. But as you can imagine, we're going to have to spend a lot more money for some blueprints for extra large ship fabrication. So we're not quite ready for that yet. We do have over 300 million, so we're in the neighborhood, but we're not quite ready for that. We're going to get our large ship production up and running before we try to tackle that. Now, in the last couple of videos, I believe we've been talking about something in particular, and that is the fact that I have had some supply vessels get attacked by the Vigor Syndicate. And I'm not sure how all that's happening, because I'm certainly not trying to provoke them. I'm not creating these attacks. But what I have found is that it seems to be happening right here at Windfall 1 near the jump gate. Okay, and it may be happening right here at Windfall 3 near the accelerator as well, but I've actually witnessed it firsthand at the jump gate in Windfall 1. And of course, this is a vital jump gate, because we're using that to jump back and forth from Silent Witness, which is very near our home. You can see here, we want to make sure this area is protected, because obviously we do a lot of travel through there. And then also right here at this jump gate, because we're using that in order to trade with the Riptide, which are all down through here. In fact, you notice over here at the Riptide Raker's Shipyard, we have an invitation over here. This is where their faction representative is, and we have reached a +10. So actually, let's just come back in here for just a second. There we go. We're at a +13 right now, and we have reached the first level of promotion with them. So that's very exciting. So I'll be heading over there to take care of that ceremony that we've seen a couple of times now in our gameplay with other factions. So I'll take care of that off camera. But I am very excited about the possibilities, because it's looking more and more like we're going to end up at war with the Vigor Syndicate. Not necessarily something I planned, but I believe that's where we're going to end up. And so I am planning for that. That is going to be a huge war, because you probably can't see it right now, because again, we don't have active radar in these areas. So the only time we get to see that is when we have a ship in the area. But I have seen on multiple occasions, and we saw it some in last video too, where they have a huge military presence. We can only see parts of it, but I see enough to know that they are very serious. And so if they decide to, let's say, take over Silent Witness 1, right now we have no way of stopping that, and that would be a huge problem for our trading operations. So in the future, we've got a lot of work to do against the Vigor Syndicate as well as the Xenon. So we're going to need these shipyards and wharfs to get busy making us some money and producing us some ships. Now, let's come back in, because right now I want to see real quick if we've been making any money lately with the wharfs. Because obviously our KPG wharf, our very first wharf, is just a money-making machine. It's making quite a bit. And I will tell you guys that all of this money that you're seeing here, the roughly 38 million, so 33 of that being profit, because I try to keep about 5 million in there, that's all happened during today's video. Because I checked before I started filming and to see if I needed to move any money out, and it was right at 5 million. So it hadn't made any. Also, same thing goes for the Terran wharf. The Terran have started using it more and more lately. So obviously, they've got some needs that are not being met by their own wharfs. And so they're using our wharfs. So that is even adding more and more to our profit. Everything else appears to be doing pretty good. It really doesn't need any money. Let's take a look at our shipyard. Oh, expected construction budget. Okay, we now have all the materials to finish up construction on the shipyard. So all the production and everything, so we've got 2.8 million there that we no longer need. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. Sometimes on some of the stations, I'll leave a little bit of money in the construction budget because I do plan on doing some expansion in the future. So you might see that on a few of the stations from time to time. But for the most part, I try to move that money out. So we're at 323 million. Let's move this out. Now we're up to 383. So life is good. And in fact, you can see we've made a few more ships on the KPG wharf just since we've been talking about it. Okay, so that takes care of sort of a summary of how the shipyard is going and how the money making is going and some of the plans for the future for the extra large ships. But now, let's actually hop back over to our new friend, who is, I believe we're over here in Avarice 1. Is that where we are? Yes. All right, so where is... Oh, this is where I'm going to have to depend on this to work. Nope, it's not working. All right, so let's try and see if we can get this to work. So what I would like to do as we finish up today is go back to one of the trades that we left with in our last video. Yeah, this is driving me nuts that the property owned menu doesn't work most of the time. Now it works every so often, but you can see right now it is not working, and quite frankly, to save my blood pressure, I am not going to mess with it. Oh no. In fact, bottom left hand corner of your screen, the Vigor Syndicate has destroyed one of, I believe that was one of our traders. So yeah, the Vigor Syndicate, they don't like us, and we don't like them at this point. Destroying my ships is not a way to become friends. So yeah, we're going to have to deal with them at some point. We saw it in the Tides of Avarice. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Hatikva's Choice 1. What are you guys doing? Can I get into here? No, I cannot get in here because of course I can't. All right, so let's get over to Hatikva's Choice 1. What are the Xenon doing? Where are they doing it? Oh, I see what you're doing here. So they've sent some, okay, some Zen Ks. They've sent some Zen Ks over into this area, so that's how they're getting my traders. Okay, well, we'll have to take care of that now, won't we? So they've snuck in the back way. So they couldn't get through over here, so they have snuck in the back way. But it looks like they've only sent the Zen Ks. They don't have a large contingent, and Argon seems to be helping them out over there. Hopefully, we can take care of that as well. Okay, so now I see what you're doing. You're getting pretty sneaky with it. All that's going to do... Oh, and the Vigor Syndicate... Oh, everybody is taken to the fighting now. So that is going to give us a whole lot more stuff to do in the future. But for today, that's going to take care of today's video. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope you guys are enjoying X4 as much as I am.